The largest bird to ever fly. Here, in prehistoric Argentina all those millions of years ago, that is exactly where you want to have your eyes peeled, because it was in this ancient place that the largest bird to ever fly existed. And it wasn't exactly a friendly kind of big bird either. Let's get into it. Body, the discovery that changed everything. This was the Argentavis, the pinnacle of avian dinosaurs and just about the scariest bird to ever fly. The story of its place in our history is relatively recent, despite its ancient age only being put on our radars in the last few decades. It was in 1980 that its existence was first made aware of. The holotype for this creature was discovered in Argentina, where a group of paleontologists stumbled upon the remains of a skull and various parts of the legs and wings of a bird found in a formation in La Pampa province. The bones themselves had been badly crushed and were quite fragmentary, so not exactly in pristine condition. Yet the team was still able to clearly tell three things. One, that they had found a bird. Two, that it was a new kind of species. And three, that it was huge, leading to it being described and named based on location, giving it the name Argentavis magnificens, meaning the magnificent Argentine bird or the magnificent silver bird. And things would only get more grand as, within the coming years, more excursions revealed three more partially complete skeletons, which confirmed again that this was a new creature and one of record-breaking proportions. It quickly gained media hype. I mean, who doesn't love the thought of giant birds like those straight out of Lord of the Rings? The only problem was that estimating the true size of Argentavis has proved a bit tricky due to limited material. How big was this thing really? In its original description, the founders gave it a mammoth wingspan of 7.5 meters or 24 feet 7 inches, making it almost laughably larger than any other bird and on par with the giant pterosaurs of old. Another way to really think about the scale is that this wingspan is about double the length of a fully grown rhino. And afterwards, things somehow got even more crazy as the estimates were not reduced in the coming years, but instead increased with a slightly larger size of 8.3 meters or 27 feet being proposed, meaning you could place three of the biggest bald eagles flying around side by side with their wings fully outstretched and still have more room to fill. That's how big this bird supposedly was. But since then, things for Argentavis have cooled down slightly. Nowadays, estimates typically suggest that fully grown individuals had a wingspan of about 6 meters or nearly 20 feet, which is still obviously absolutely giant and is almost double that of the current largest living bird by wingspan, the wandering albatross. And really, there is only one bird known to rival the size of Argentavis, the fellow extinct Pelagornis sandersi, a type of pseudo-tooth bird that inhabited the coast of South Carolina and possessed a wingspan that was equal to Argentavis's first size estimate, giving it the crown for the widest wingspan. Yet with that said, if you made a Pelagornis and Argentavis fly into each other, let alone fight, I guarantee you that the Pelagornis is going to get absolutely creamed, because Argentavis had comfortably retained the title as the heaviest bird to ever fly. And by that argument, it's also still the biggest to rule the skies, with the max reasonable estimates of its weight standing around 72 kilos or 159 pounds, similar to the weight you see in mid-sized jaguars. And for reference, the golden eagle, which is used to hunt wolves in Mongolia, is over 10 times lighter. So just imagine what this beast could do. And it also greatly outweighs the Pelagornis, which is only half its weight despite being longer. So who is the real big bird? Not to mention that even when just standing around it greatly outsized Pelagornis, when it was not in flight but walking on land, its head would have likely peered straight over you, coming in at 6.5 feet or nearly 2 meters. Again, imagine this, a 2-meter tall bird that can fly. What kind of nightmare was this? In addition to its intimidating size, another area where Argentavis easily beats Pelagornis is sheer scariness. Pelagornis was something of a supersized seagull, being a seabird that lived along the coast and fed primarily on fish, while on the other hand, Argentavis was something more of a menace. But exactly what kind of menace is a little blurry around the edges. Historically, it has been classified as belonging to the family of prehistoric birds known as the Pteratornithidae, which were birds of prey that lived in northern North and South America. And as far as we can tell, they are most closely related to the extinct New World vultures. And because of this, it's sometimes been thought that they probably looked a lot like them too, and perhaps acted in similar ways, being scavengers that scoured huge swaths of land for opportunity, while perhaps also being kleptoparasites. In other words, taking hunted prey away from other predators, using their size-giant, razor-sharp beaks and talons as effective debate tools, you could say. Though in reality, it's also thought that Argentavis was really a bit more feisty than being just your simple neighborhood scavenger and bully. Specifically, the legs that it possessed were relatively long for its already huge size, as well as being powerful and sturdy, leading to the new idea that Argentavis would fly around the skies looking for prey, before then landing on the ground, where it would proceed to actually chase its prey down and often swallow them whole, thanks to their highly flexible mouths that could create a massive gape that was big enough to gulp down a full-sized hare in one swift go. And that might not sound that big, but for the record, not even a wolf can do that. Of course, in this scenario, they likely still would have scavenged whenever given the chance. And then there is also a small subset of people that are hopeful that Argentavis was basically a big giant eagle that swooped up anything and everything it saw, utilizing its powerful talons and its beak. But I will say this reasoning seems somewhat unlikely, as unlike an eagle, Argentavis was a bit of a weak flyer, having a lightly built frame, all things considered, that would have made it rather inefficient at flapping. And thus, a hunting tactic that relied a lot on flying doesn't seem like it would make much sense. How did something this big even fly? And the flying portion leads to another question which paleontologists have. How exactly did Argentavis even manage to fly in the first place, given its massive size? And the answer to that is it might have needed to rely on a mix of different strategies in the right conditions to get the job done. For example, it's believed that to even get off the ground, an individual would have needed to reach 40 kilometers or 25 miles per hour to lift off. So a bit like a living plane. And that's not exactly slow, as it's not even far off of Usain Bolt's fastest speed, and despite what you may be thinking right now, its long legs were not sufficient to allow the bird to run at these speeds. In reality, to achieve this, it's thought that Argentavis would just yeet itself off cliffs and drops or run into very strong winds, whereupon it would lift off. But personally, I like the yeeting idea better. And then once actually in the air, Argentavis likely needed some additional help to stay afloat, utilizing a tactic known as thermal soaring, wherein it would essentially ride columns of warm air like an elevator as warm air rises, which would then not only make flying possible, but also help reduce the amount of flapping required. And then when it did flap, it was of course helpful that these guys had their giant wings, which when extended, took up an area of about 91 square feet, which is, by the way, larger than some studio apartments you'll find in New York City. However, despite being huge, Argentavis did have more graceful wings, so to speak, in the sense that, like most other birds, its wings were highly sensitive parts of their body and were prone to injury. And thus, despite being giant, they did have to be very careful, especially when engaging with other predators.